The Enterprise is 20 years old. Why Star Trek 3 was wrong about the age of Kirk's starship? When Admiral Kirk utters the famous line in Star Trek 3, the search for Spock, that the Enterprise is 20 years old, it feels like one of those solid grounding details the franchise occasionally drops to remind viewers that its technology, like its people, ages with time. But the problem is, Kirk's statement doesn't quite hold up. If you dig into Starfleet history, production timelines, and the wider canon, the age of the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 becomes one of the most puzzling continuity hiccups in Star Trek lore. And yet, it's also one of the most fascinating. The canon problem. Kirk's casual line, "In the search for Spock, the Enterprise is on its last legs after the punishing battle against Khan Noonien Singh in the Wrath of Khan." With heavy damage, obsolete systems, and Starfleet brass eager to mothball her, Kirk sighs to Dr. McCoy that the starship is 20 years old. It's a throwaway line, but it sticks because it paints the Enterprise not as an ageless icon, but as a workhorse nearing retirement. The issue? By almost every calculation, the original Constitution-class Enterprise had been in service much longer than 2 decades by the events of Star Trek 3. Construction timelines don't match. Fans who've spent years piecing together the Starship service record will tell you the numbers don't add up. Most sources agree that the Enterprise was launched in the early to mid-2240s. Some novels, tech manuals, and secondary sources place her commissioning date around 2245, under the command of Captain Robert April. Captain Christopher Pike takes command around 2250, and James T. Kirk assumes command circa 2265, just in time for the original series. By the time of Star Trek 3, the year is 2285. Do the math. That makes the Enterprise at least 40 years old, twice the age Kirk claims. Why would Kirk say 20 years? There are a few in-universe explanations fans have debated for decades. 1. Refit equal reset clock. The most popular theory is that Kirk was referring to the refit Enterprise, the dramatically redesigned ship introduced in Star Trek, the motion picture. The refit was completed in 2271, making it about 14 years old in the search for Spock. If Kirk rounded up, 20 doesn't sound so crazy. 2. Kirk being sentimental. Perhaps Kirk isn't speaking literally. The Enterprise is more than a vessel. It's a piece of his soul. When he says 20 years old, he might mean 20 years since she became his ship. After all, Kirk took command around 2265, which would put him at the helm for 20 years by 2285. It's less about the ship's birth and more about his personal history with her. 3. Production oversight. Of course, the simplest answer is that the filmmakers weren't concerned with the detailed Starship timeline fans obsess over today. Star Trek 3 was about emotional stakes, sacrifice, and the end of an era, not the nitty-gritty of shipyard commissioning dates. To screenwriters in the mid-1980s, 20 years sounded like a good, round, serviceable number. Why it still matters. For some, this discrepancy might seem trivial. But for Star Trek, where world building and lore are cornerstones of the fandom experience, such details resonate deeply. The Enterprise isn't just a ship. It's the face of the franchise, a symbol of exploration, loyalty, and endurance. Whether she's 20, 40, or 100 years old changes how we perceive her final sacrifice in Star Trek 3. A 20-year-old ship going out in a blaze of glory feels like a tragic waste. A 40-year-old veteran finally giving everything she has feels more like a fitting farewell. That nuance colors how we interpret Kirk's gut-wrenching decision to destroy her. The franchise's retroactive fixes. Later Star Trek stories would lean into the longer service life interpretation. Star Trek Strange New Worlds firmly places the Enterprise in active duty under Captain Pike by the 2250s, decades before Kirk's fateful line. Discovery Season 2 also reinforces that the ship is older than 20 years by the time of the movies. Even the Star Trek Encyclopedia and technical manuals published in the 1990s side with a 2,245 launch date, making her 40 years old in the search for Spock. So while Kirk's statement is canon, the surrounding canon has essentially retconned it into metaphor rather than fact. The human side of the error. At the end of the day, the line works because it's about emotion, not engineering. Kirk wasn't giving a lecture at Starfleet Academy. He was grieving a ship he loved. The Enterprise had seen him through battles, first contacts, and losses. To him, she was as alive as Spock or McCoy. When he says 20 years, he might not be thinking in exact numbers, but rather in terms of his years of experience, the time that mattered to him. And that's the magic of Star Trek. Even when the numbers don't add up, the feelings do.